There's no one out.
It is,
All right, it's 4:30. We'll begin the meeting. Richard, roll call.
Kyle.
Here.
Larry.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
Brian.
Here.
Danielle. Here. Jeremy.
Here.
Greg. Jim. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I've got proof of publication here from the Daily Record.
all right. Anyone desiring to speak on any item or issue not on the agenda or any item on the agenda that does not include a public hearing may do so, but shall be limited to 3 minutes. Persons should identify themselves by name and address. Person speaking should not expect the planning commission to engage in back and forth dialogue regarding their comments. Unless an agenda item includes a public hearing, no person may speak during the business portion of the meeting, provided, however, persons speaking during a public hearing are limited to 5 and 20 minutes. The public is advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the council chamber, and one copy of all reproducible written material can be discussed at this meeting is available for examination or copying.
Okay, item number 6, approval of agenda. I would make one change. Item number 8 says, consideration and recommendation for adjustments to the building design standards. That did not make it into the Daily Record. So I don't believe we've taken any action on it. Right?
No, there's not a hearing on that.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you don't do a hearing on that, so it doesn't need.
Just discussion only.
Well, you're gonna make a recommendation, but there's no hearing.
Oh, okay.
Hearings have to be published in the Daily Record.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's a regular agenda item.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Who made, who seconded?
Kyle.
Scott.
Thank you.
All right, I ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the April 15th, 2025 planning. Any additions or corrections or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mark and Brian? Okay, I'd open the public hearing for the item 9A, Flatmore Estates LLC, which is going to be called Champion Shores. Consideration and recommendation of change of zoning from an industrial I2 to residential.
Larry, hold on. You went from the consent agenda to the public hearing. John Batcher is speaking on design standards,
Number 8.
number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, John.
It's all right. Thanks.
That was Freudian, I guess.
That means keep it quick.
Yeah. Hurry up, we gotta do number 8.
I know you want to get to number 9. I'll make number 8 really short. Thank you, first of all, for taking time to discuss this with me. I think that between Rune and Greg Perry and I, we've come up with some of the recommendations that you're seeing here regarding the changes to the design standards. But I think most importantly, all of us here in this room have a common interest in taking a look at these design standards and possibly making the adjustments that I'm recommending at this point. So full disclosure, I'm a property owner here in Valley and have been in various ways for over 17 years. And just like you, I care about how we're helping steward the property assets of the city and the residents of the city. And so common interest in this. Today, I'm asking for your unanimous support for adjusting the current design standards as proposed in the documents I've provided. It's fitting that I'm asking for this and the adjustments in these design standards because I'm the one who helped promote the design standards as they were applied through the Highway Overlay District across the Valley ETJ a couple years back. And so having lived with those design standards for a couple years, it made sense at the time, but now we're seeing some of the effects of that and hoping to revise these design standards slightly to maybe better fit what we were trying to achieve at that time. I believe that other members of the city council, though we may be divided on some issues, can agree that seeing our residents and members of the Valley business community thrive right here in Valley is really what we're striving for as a community. And I hope these adjustments, as we walk through them, are something that you will see make sense, and you can get behind and support this for the good of the Valley business community and our residents. So with this in mind, I'd like to walk you through the document you have in front of you. It's the PowerPoint deck and the other document, which you should have received as part of your packet. If you didn't, apologies, but I do have copies. I think everybody got a copy. Yeah. This document is something that I'll walk through as we make our way into the PowerPoint. And so just taking this kind of one bit at a time, please feel free to stop me along the way. But on page 2 of the PowerPoint deck, which has the cover like this, I know I handed you a lot of paperwork. Page 2 of the deck that looks like this. Really, when we look in section 12.1, item number 4, the goal here is to maintain the high quality of life without significantly increasing public or private costs for development or unduly restricting private enterprise initiative or innovation in design. And that's part of the current code. That's the way the standards are written today. And that's really the spirit in which I'm approaching this today. And quite frankly, we approached it a couple of years ago. Go ahead, Larry.
Is that in there already, John?
Yes,
Okay, you're just pointing it out.
it is. Yep. So as we flip to the next page, that's the current code language supporting the spirit and intent of the current code language. If you jump to the next page, you'll see in red, there are a couple items that are proposed changes to the code language. The first is all commercial uses, and then you see in red and underlined, immediately adjacent to or within 100 feet of an arterial or collector right-of-way shall comply. All that other language is the same. And then down below is a definition that Greg helped me design or helped write based on other language in other cities. And so the arterial or collector right-of-way is really defined by the city engineer, and maybe Greg can speak more to that if he has any thoughts on that. But I wanted to give you some examples. And so there's some examples there of the roads that would be considered arterial or collector. And then the following 2 pages would have some maps on them that depict a number of those. Go ahead.
I'm assuming that there's something that's not in compliance, or there's something that you're trying to correct with this. Do you have an example of what you're talking about?
I do. So as we get a couple more pages here, you'll be able to see the properties highlighted, and I think that'll show you the properties.
But in words, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yep. So the first is, if you want to now flip to this, good segue. Thank you. The first is what we're looking at is when we applied those design standards a couple years ago to the highway overlay design standards to the entire ETJ. What we didn't take into account was those buildings that could neither be seen from the road or weren't part of that arterial or collector roadway, I would say frontage, if you will. And so we applied the same standards. So you had to build I'm going to call it a pretty building that met all of these definitions, even if that pretty building wasn't going to be able to be seen. And so what the minor changes that are here, and all those changes in this document are in red, basically that reduces those standards or changes those standards slightly so they can, those buildings that aren't on an arterial or collector right-of-way maybe can meet those lesser standards. And so that's what's documented herein.
So if you're driving down the street, the building doesn't have, and you can't see the building, it doesn't have to be pretty.
It still has to be pretty, it just has to meet a lesser standard, if you will. And so some of the standards that we maybe can use by way of examples here might make some sense. Things like on page 2, instead of 100 feet in length where they have to meet all the design standards, we're saying it's 150. So for example, that's a 30 by 60 or 30 by 50 building, 30 by 50 building. If you want to look at like bays 30 feet wide, 50 feet deep, That's a 7,500 square foot building with those. Not a huge building, but we're increasing the distance over which these design standards basically have to apply. So instead of 100, we're now at 150. We changed things like parking requirements to allow more parking than the maximum. So we get cars off streets, we put them in parking lots where they belong. We reduced the amount of glass on the front of some of these buildings that can't be seen, which improves safety and security of the assets within those buildings. So we didn't eliminate those. We simply changed those. So things like stone on the side of the building, we changed that from a 20% requirement, I believe, to a 5% requirement. Again, not going to fundamentally change the performance, the look of the building, or the security. And so we lessened that standard to try to reduce the expense. And we did that thinking this is going to be a way to provide places for our business, Valley residents who own businesses, attract other businesses, because we can rent those buildings or we can sell those buildings at a lesser cost because they can be built at a lesser cost. So that's the spirit behind this. Does that answer your question to some extent? Okay. So you can see there's a number of those changes. I'm not going to read each of those changes because I think you can see that there was just a reduction. Things like storefront facades, where they had to have 3 visible elements, we reduced that to 2. So still elements that would make this make sense, make for a quote unquote pretty building, but didn't require the expense that a building that was on an arterial or collector right of way might require. So questions on any of those related to the materials, the windows, the glazing? Again, relatively straightforward changes to those without eliminating those. And then I think the other was the change to the parking where we could get more cars off street at some of these places that would be maybe for contractor bays, that kind of thing where somebody would show up, park in the morning and be parked there all day.
John, was number 13 in here already? Where the guidelines are not intended to inhibit creativity? Is
Yes.
that already in there?
Yes, I highlighted that because I think that's again in line with the spirit of what we're trying to do here, is these aren't intended to inhibit creativity. And we want to keep that regardless of the building being on that arterial or collector right away. We want to still promote some innovation. We want to promote a really good looking building, but as we talked, we have to have a standard for what kind of beauty is. Otherwise, well, I think that looks good, and Larry can say he doesn't think that looks good, and Mark can say he really likes it. You know, so what's to say that one thing is right and the other's wrong? So we wanted to again bring it back to a standard, and that helps Rune and Greg be able to, number 1, permit, and number 2, enforce.
So Greg and Rune would do the demonstration of whatever I would propose as a substitute material. We go through those 2 guys.
So that'd be a waiver from site design standards.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so that would go through planning and council.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
This is a curveball, okay, but will the tariffs have any impact on the cost? I know what you try to control costs, but is that still a consideration or not?
Will tariffs have any impact on costs? If I had a crystal ball, I would tell you. Right now, if I was talking to people in the industry, they're saying no. And if there is a minimal impact, it's going to be just that, minimal at this point. Now, down the road, don't know. Yes, Kyle.
Just clarification
Sure.
on the numbering system on the very top, the 12.05.01.
Yeah.
Assuming that this is going to be added to, it'll be 0.01, or is it just going to be a revision to 05?
Yeah, no, I added the 01 to basically say, hey, this is the change standard. I'm not sure how we would number that. Rune would probably have some input on that.
It'd probably just be a separate section, honestly.
Okay.
This is the easiest way instead of trying to rewrite the entire 12.05 with exceptions under each paragraph where something was changed. It might just be easier just to, I don't know.
Yeah, so Kyle, you raise a good point. Basically, if you are on an arterial or collector road, here's your standards. If you're not, here are your standards. And that way there are still standards that make sure that this is, number one, permitted, number two, able to be enforced. So as we walk through, again, I provided a couple maps that simply allow for you to see kind of what those arterial and collector roads would be. Not all inclusive, but gives you an idea of where those fall within our ETJ. And the why behind this, and there's a couple people here who may speak to this, but the why behind this is really simple from a number of different standpoints: business owners, residents in the city. As we look at this, it helps our goal of attracting and retaining small business, reduces the purchase price on some of these buildings, and certainly the rent rate potential on some of these buildings for people who want to keep their business here in Valley. And you all know that that's one of the key pieces of a building, or key piece of a business's bottom line, is how do we manage our costs related to what is affordable housing for businesses is really what we're looking for. And then I mentioned increasing the safety and security of some of those business assets. If they're off street, they're not on a main thoroughfare, they may want to increase security by not having an all glass storefront. This allows for glass, so still a good looking building with natural daylight, but less, so there's not the risk of break-ins. The assets aren't as easily seen. From a residence side of things, there's a lot of small business owners here in town. And I think we all know someone or multiple people who have small businesses here in town. Our hope is that it keeps local companies local and attracts new companies and new business here. And then our residents, we're hoping they buy from Valley for Valley. So that's another big piece of this puzzle. Last is just from a standpoint of a tax revenue. As we start looking at turnback tax, as we look at some of those opportunities to put money back into the city versus take it out and deliver it across the state, this is a good opportunity for those who maybe run a small engine repair shop or who run a, let's say, lake toys shop or something like that, that all of a sudden that tax revenue can drop back into the city and is not shared broadly across the state because of the way we're going to be able to structure some turnback tax. I think one of the biggest things we hear is, man, I really wish Valley had why doesn't someone open up and fill in the blank? But a lot of times these are service businesses that need a service type home for their equipment, for their people, that type of thing. So then the next few pages, I gave some examples, 5 to be exact, of how this would apply. And I think example 1 is a great example for Valley Lakes Business Park. The lots that are on East Miggs Street, that face East Miggs Street, would be on an arterial or collector right of way. So those would meet the current design standard as printed. The yellow lots that are off that would have to meet this secondary design standard. So again, meeting a standard, having a way to permit those, and then having a way to enforce that. There's a handful of other examples here. GM Construction, who's represented here today, as we look at their space that they own. They're not a developer. They simply want to build on their space. And looking at that, they would have the ability to put those secondary buildings behind their current buildings without having any impact to that primary design standard. They could do it under this lesser design standard or the adjusted design standard. 3, 4, and 5 are just more examples of the same. Where the frontage would meet that current design standard, the buildings or the areas, if developed toward the back of those lots, it would be able to meet this, what I'm calling a secondary design standard. So with that, a couple pictures of buildings that that do not meet the adjusted standards are first. So I have 4 buildings there, and for various reasons, those buildings, whether we may agree they look good or don't look good, would not even meet the adjusted design standard. They don't have enough stone, or they don't have enough glass. They're too long, some of those types of things. So those would be something that we would have to say, these have to meet a higher standard. The last page would be buildings that meet or exceed that standard because of the glass work on the front, because of the stone work on the front, the length, some of those types of things. So wanted to give you examples as well. But you can see, even those that don't meet the design standards, if those are up leveled just a little bit, they end up being what would be a building that we would be proud of here in Valley. And certainly those that meet the adjusted design standards are buildings that we would be proud of here in Valley. Questions, comments?
So the real hard question is, what happens to those buildings that do not, this gets in place? What's gonna happen to those buildings that do not need it?
If they're already in place, they've been permitted under something else. They may have been permitted even prior to the design standard being enforced a couple years ago. So this would be going forward, anything that's already not platted or permitted, that's where the impact would be. So no change to those folks who've done buildings in the past or developments in the past.
Any other questions for John or Greg or Brian, for that matter, on this item? All right, I entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Brian and Kyle, any other discussion?
Just a quick note procedurally, so, good discussion to have. We're gonna have to make the changes that we've talked about in the code, have a public hearing and run it back through planning. So you guys will see it again with what John has proposed. And then we'll have a public hearing on it, we'll run it back through planning, and then you will make your recommendations to council. So you can certainly kind of give them a general, if this is something you're willing to consider, but we're not gonna make any formal recommendations.
All right. You withdraw that? Second?
No, I'm gonna stick by that.
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thanks
think
for-
it's great.
Thanks,
I
John.
appreciate where you outlined what the footage was, what the new footage is, what the old percentage was. Hopefully everyone will be.
Sure.
Easy to.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to answer questions if during the consideration here, as you go. If you have other things, we'll get this to Andrea and get it in front of you for the next round for planning commission.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, move on to number 9. I'll open the public hearing. 9A, Flatwater Estates LLC, to be known as Champion Shores, consideration recommendation of change of zoning from industrial I2 to residential R3 and residential R3. Open the public hearing. Public comments. Anybody have any public comments?
I do, sorry. Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road. With me tonight is Lori Nick Hyman and Kyle Holt. He's our engineer for this project. So tonight we are just talking about our preliminary plat, but it's really our first opportunity to tell you what we're doing as far as this development. I think most folks know where this is located on the west side of the city. This is just about 200 acres. It's been sitting somewhat excavated for a while now. And I know Nick and Lori have gone through various iterations to get here, but here we are. So first and foremost, because I think there was a question about the applicant is actually Hyman Ventures 3, which is wholly owned by Nick and Lori. The development itself, though, will be called Champion Shores when we hopefully are done. But it's interesting to just kind of follow up a little bit on what Mr. Batcher was just saying. It's fun to do these developments in cities like yours, in that you are the next Gretna, you are the next Bennington. Your city is growing, and I think there's a way to do that, and having good standards like that is helpful. Because you look back like on Country Air when I was in front of you for that particular deal and providing that sort of affordable housing for your city, moving over to Catalina, which is going to have a lot more commercial development for your city as well as single-family residential. But then also following up with an amenity that your city has, which is these lake developments. And so the key in doing this is Country Air was a local developer, Catalina was a local developer, and Lori and Nick they parked their business here for a reason. So small business reinvesting in the community, I think, is really, really important as you all continue to grow and kind of shepherd your city through some changes. So this is a lake development, you know them, and what's being proposed is about 127 single-family residential homes. Is it okay if can everyone hear me if I talk without the mic? 127 single-family residential homes, mostly over here. There's about 5 of them stacked over here. Along West Valley is 13 lots. So these 13 lots, can you see okay? These will be fourplexes, so 52 units. Nick and Lori wanted to provide single-family residential housing over here, but they also wanted to have these more affordable units down here to give kind of a variety of people that want to live on a lake. The really cool thing that they're doing in this particular development is over here on the west side. This will all be public access for residents of the city of Valley to come and utilize. So that is gonna be a beachfront, that's gonna be a fishing pier, there's basketball courts, there's pickleball courts. There is a full access trail along the entire development that will be open to the public. So I think we're supposed to call them side-by-sides, but if you have a side-by-side, you're gonna be able to utilize that trail and it will go around the whole development. Now, with that, not in front of you right now, but eventually there will be a request for tax increment financing, one of which, because this is a pretty expensive ask. This is about $3.5 million to do this. There's a pump station over here that's about $500,000 that we'll also ask to utilize TIP for. And then our force main coming on 288 to tie into the Ivy Street force main, that's about another $500,000 to $600,000. So we will request TIP, but that money is only for public improvements. We're not asking for any recapture of acquisition costs or engineering fees or geotech or all the things that people ask TIP for. That will just be for true public improvements. And that application is currently sitting with your city attorney, so you will see us again for that. But with that, we'll have a full movement, back to the actual project, we'll have a full movement intersection here at Ida, and we'll have a full movement intersection down here at Joanna Ave. These lots will all have access to West Valley Road in conjunction therewith, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but we might see a speed limit reduction along Valley. I know we talked about that, but I think that's encouraged. Just as people come out here, this is gonna be part of your city. As residents come and utilize this, we wanna slow folks down so that they can use this amenity and enjoy it just like all the residents of the development will do as well. Let me see what else. So this is a boat pad or a launching pad down here for the residents. This will be private. This is not open to the public. But otherwise, everything you see on this west side is public. In addition, because you have Valley 4 over here, which is an existing grandfathered in industrial use.
Is that the east side or the west side?
I'm sorry, east. On the east side, this is West Valley Core. We will have significant landscaping and berming right here. As much as they don't want to see us, we don't want to see them too. So Nick and Laura will install a healthy amount of landscaping and berming over here on the east side. The same is going to be true up here. There is some downlighting that comes off of the industrial use to the north, but for the same thing, we'll have this berming over here along the north line, property line as well. So with that, I might stop and see if there's any questions initially. Go ahead, Larry.
That lot that's orange down there,
I'm sorry.
that lot that's orange,
Yes, good question. So that is, it's wetlands. So currently we have a permit that we're gonna have to get to develop that. If we get that permit, there are some fun uses you could use for that, but until we get that permit, we really can't show that it can be developed for anything.
And the green lot.
That's an outlot. So all these green outlots, make sure I get this right, Kyle, these are
storm drainage easements.
storage drainage easements, because we'll utilize the lake for actual stormwater runoff. So those are just easements there for this various stormwater uses.
Fencing on the east side,
Yes.
is there gonna be a hard fence?
How tall is that fence? Do you know yet?
6.
Yeah.
Assume we're gonna do 6.
And that'll go all the way from West Valley Street?
Correct. My guess is it'll probably start over here in this corner, only because that road kind of offers a nice little buffer. But really, it's this industrial use that we're sensitive probably more to than even Valley Core is.
Well,
We don't want people going over there, and they don't want us there either.
but typically, people that own side-by-sides are adventurers,
Yeah.
so you might consider another way to.
Sure.
Whether it be a lot of close trees planted, whatever, just to kind of slow down.
I just would left side by sides on that.
Going
Or
north.
they can't use the trail system,
Yeah,
you know.
And I think
in fact, I don't know if it's even legal to do that.
We're fine with that. That was more just if the city wanted to allow that, he would allow it, but the city says
I
no.
understand why, you know, because it is a long distance there, but
Right. Otherwise, in a perfect world, we're doing grading yet this year, such that we might have platted lots to sell and market maybe this spring, and maybe people are building fall of 2026. A lot of this work, as you know, has been done. It was paused for a while, but now they're ready to go. And so, yeah, fall of 2026, folks should be in a position that hopefully they can pull building permits and get going. Go ahead.
Looking in that area where you're talking about anybody from Valley can come out. What do you, I can't see that well, I'm blind in one eye and can't see out the other. But what exactly, where are they gonna park?
If they're coming up here,
If you said that was kind of gonna be open to the
Yeah,
public, all the way.
that's where this lot down here comes into play. Is we could utilize this for parking, if we get that wetlands permit. And I don't show a parking lot there, because to do that, again, you gotta get an
But you
infill.
understand my question, if you're gonna, in one breath, you're gonna say, this is gonna be a good thing for the citizens to
We
come.
hope they walk, and we hope they utilize their bikes. We don't have a big city just yet, and we're right on the west side. But there is room, kidding aside, there is room there for a parking lot. In a world where the gentleman that owns this house sells, there is some other uses, and assuming you can find a purchase price that makes sense, you could put a nice commercial use there, and if you're able to do that, that would have a parking lot there.
Okay.
And we've explored that. Nothing yet.
I just think all right,
The 5 lots on the northeast.
Mhm.
Nothing has been done there, so that's probably gonna have to come up, raised.
That's a good question from my friend, Mr. Vole. Will we raise these lots?
Yeah, there's floodplain elevations that we need to hit for all of the lots.
Do we know what those are, how high? We've got issues with drainage. Everything from Valley Shores and along Richmond Road flow right down there, go under the railroad tracks. And it's supposed to feed, I guess it would be between, Matt's place and, the little shop there. And when we get rains, it backs clear up to Valley Shores. So I know it's gotta be bad over there by Bevington's and stuff. Are we gonna address that? If we're gonna raise all of that, we're gonna address that to make sure that all drains. Cause it's not just draining off that road there. I mean, it encompasses a lot of area that drains to that point right there.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kyle Bull with the NA Consulting Group. So the FEMA floodplain elevations from the northwest corner to the southeast range from like an 1147 down to 1140, which is surprising on that short a span to see that type of vertical drop. But so for structure wise, we have to lift up the lots to get to those elevations. And then we're going to do a series of culverts and kind of bird baths in the streets themselves to keep the existing drainage patterns though. So as far as the structure is going to be well above, but then we have overflow paths with these right of ways, the lake itself, and the other outlot drainage easement areas.
Okay.
So it'll be better than it is now.
It won't be worse.
Let's hope
I
not.
can't say that, whenever I do developments, I can't promise it's gonna get better, but one of the things we do is make sure it doesn't get any worse. So.
Roger, you guys
But it's
have
already
problems over there with water?
Just his issue.
That whole area originally drained onto the south through the wetland area that they're talking about all along that side. And you're blocking that up. That's the reason you have a problem with Valley Shore.
Yeah. I mean, it feeds all the way up Richmond.
Well, all the way along the railroad track.
So, I mean, I'm basically on each side of Highway 64, where that overpass is, both sides of that flows right to that corner there.
Comes under the railroad tracks.
Goes under the railroad tracks and
Under Irish
shoots.
Circle and.
I don't know where it goes from there, but it's gotta be going somewhere, but I know that's where it's jamming up, is right there.
It used to go all the way south and come through the old Stockyards Lake.
Okay. So there's 2 accesses in and out.
Correct.
How do we address the 64, Highway 64 access? We're dumping more and more cars in there, right? And with no turn lanes. I mean,
Well-
Valley Shores, I can tell you that, and it wasn't quite as bad. It's steadily getting worse now that Blue Water has basically almost filled up. With no turn lanes, you got the crossover turn lanes, but we have no turn lanes, and these people are just blowing around right through the cross lane, turn lane. Someone's gonna get killed, and I know the state, it seems to me, and I might be wrong, but it always seems that they wait till there's a fatality to address anything.
Sure.
I don't want any of my neighbors to be killed just to get.
Yeah, a couple of big things, and Scott, to your point, is since the previous version of this is utilizing the Ida Circle access location where the previous plan had a separate entrance off of 64, and the one benefit of that is there's already 3 lanes coming off of the bridge going westbound, so there is a left turn at Ida, which is a benefit. But as part of that intersection process with approval with the state and the DOT permit, there will be a traffic study required, so that will monitor that. A separate issue that you're talking about over at West Street and Highway 64 is a targeted intersection that we've talked with MAPPA as part of the Safe Streets for All that's kind of been flagged as one to look at and try to get some insight or federal funding and stuff like that to look at that intersection specifically for any type of traffic control. So that's a separate one from this. Yes, this traffic will ultimately go through there as well, but they are just 2 different items there. So back on this one though is the access location does utilize Ida Circle, does conflict or commingled in with the Valley Corp traffic itself, but yet does have the benefit of utilizing the existing infrastructure of the 3 lanes coming off the bridge. So there is a tremendous benefit there than having a standalone intersection that was, I'll say, a quarter mile to the west there. So back to your drainage then, Scott, there is basically 3 major components that are coming in here with the one of Valley Shores next to Valley Corp that goes through next to Kirk Hansen's property into the lake. You have a major drainage of Valley Corp coming off right there at Ida Circle, basically where there's the pipe under the highway as the second one from the north. And then you have the third one to the west next to the weather station that again drains into the lake. So there's 3 main feeders into this lake that will need to be reviewed and documented and processed as the design process goes on. And then Kyle, you were asking about that outlot, or that outlot is the drain house outlot. So it does have a detention component to this to where all that drainage will get in here, but yet bleed out underneath Valley Street long-term and still provide drainage. So I think to Kyle's point is we can do some things to make it better because like Roger was saying is this didn't used to be a lake. So now we have some elevation to actually utilize to create a ditch that might have a little bit better slope, get the water into the lake and make that a better drainage thing. Is there something else off-site that we have to look at potentially there at Ida Circle from the railroad tracks to get it to there? But that's something that we can obviously look at as well. But this thing is kind of unique where we have 3 major components of drainage coming into it that we need to be mindful of.
I guess my only other thing is as long as the people that end up buying them 5 lots realize that they're right by an industrial area. I'm sure Roger's not out there screaming and yelling and making too much noise, but.
Yeah, Bonnie might be though.
Yeah. I mean, there's gonna be some noise factor there, so.
I've been here for a long time and you know where I'm where I'm heading. But having a traffic study, talking about drainage, it's nice talking about drainage, but a traffic study, oh yeah, well, we won't. There's no guarantee that something's gonna get fixed. And the problem I'm having as I sit here and listen to all this is somebody needs to step up and say, we gotta fix it, because I will be so pissed when somebody gets killed and nobody did anything about it. Okay, so I'm asking that, a traffic study, whoop-de-doo. We're gonna look at cars, but everybody knows what the answer is. And this is getting to the point, just like I said, that it has to be fixed. So, have fun.
Mark, I agree with you. kind of.
As do we, by the way. We very much agree.
Are we talking legislative action, or, I mean, what do we do?
I mean, Highway
How do you
64,
do it?
Highway 64 is administered under the jurisdiction of the state, so it's something
Yeah.
we can talk to them, and again, that's part of the permitting process, and the traffic study will shed light on all this, so. Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question about the drainage, looking at, a lot of that running through an industrial area, coming off the highway drainage. Are any water quality features looked at to try and help filtration of that water into the lake?
Kyle, I don't know if you guys have, but I mean, basically, I'll before he'll chime in, is like, with these being major features, no, you can come back. With these being major features, there's gonna be the major conveyance that we have to respect
Yeah,
first.
absolutely,
But
right,
there is an ability to do something from a stormwater management or water quality
right.
to try to treat that first half inch flush or something like that,
Yeah.
the Omaha.
That's what I was
Yeah.
interested in.
So,
And where would those be?
So the depth of the existing excavated lake is pretty significant. So the idea of trying to do a flush this side of the culvert area or on the discharge side and the low side, the lake side, is probably not super practical. Plus, just the volume of water that'd be going through there would flush through your larger storm events. That being said, there's concerns like zebra mussels, other type of contaminants beyond just industrial, that we are looking at some potential of doing some things for like even litter and trash collection that would occur on the upstream side as a possibility. We're a preliminary plat stage. We're not all the way through those concepts at this point.
Were you able to collaborate with the DOT in their right of way and the roadside ditches? Are they open to some water quality?
Typically, they want us to leave their stuff alone. Don't even connect to it, don't touch to it. But if there's extra right of way, certainly have a conversation with them and ask them if that would be something that they would be open to.
Always important to remember that as part of this preliminary plat, Greg has a number of conditions. One is the traffic, two is the water, that we have to get through before we can come back to you guys for the final plat. So we're well aware, all these questions are valid. This is what we do as a process. Luckily, Greg knows what he's doing, so we follow his lead.
Any questions of these three gentlemen from the members? Any comments from the audience?
I would just want to make sure that we honor all existing property owners in whatever direction all these new things go. I know all these new subdivisions and lakes and all this stuff is great, and the commercial properties and all that, but we really need to make sure that the developers coming into town do everything they can to, when they say you want to be a part of this town, that's part of being this town, is respecting property owners that you're about.
100%. And I think that's why I started with what I said, which is you got folks that park their business here. They get it. They know the dynamic. You don't go willy-nilly offer to do that if you didn't believe in the community to do something. I mean, they're missing out on developable ground over there by doing that. So, and that's part of the thing is when you're going to do developments in a city like Valley, you should offer the city of Valley something when you do a development. Catalina, we did. They're doing it here. I mean, that's your whole point, and respect it and understand it.
Roger?
Roger Bennington, 304 Northwest Street. I'm kind of speaking for Matt a little bit, but gotta be a lot of concern. There's probably 200 trucks a day that go in and out of that plant. And you're gonna be dumping these people out. Are they gonna stop? Or is a truck gonna come out of there and kill somebody? Not a good thing. Talking about opening this up to the public. You can have access for fire department, rescue vehicles. Who's gonna be responsible for that area?
The homeowners association is gonna carry the insurance.
Didn't answer my question.
Yeah, well, it'll be the responsibility of the homeowners, so I guess that'd be a question.
What are you gonna do
For the
about
developer.
fire and rescue? How are you gonna get access? Somebody gets in there, gets in the water. How are you gonna get the equipment in there?
That's a good point.
Thanks, Tony.
You might have to allow the fire department to have those side-by-sides.
Yeah,
And they do quickly.
Do I introduce myself?
yeah, please, and your address.
Hi, my name is Jean Estander. I live in Flatwater over at 28437 Laurel Circle. And just to let you know, I'm not opposed to this. I think it's great that it's finally getting developed. We were supposed to be part of them, but that fell through. So my biggest concerns are for the buildings down here along West Valley. That's gonna be a lot of homes. If they're fourplexes, are these double driveways? Are they triple driveways?
Single drive.
Single driveways? Okay, so all of those single driveways are gonna cut in where people would be pedestrians walking on the sidewalk along there. And lake property, you get lots of guests, you're gonna be running your whole cars right out to the street parking. So the kids or whoever's walking on that are gonna have to go out onto West Valley. Because I've already talked with Greg, we can't put a sidewalk on the south side because of it's too little or something on that side.
The ditches, I think.
The ditches, yeah, they're not big enough, so we're gonna only have one sidewalk on the, north side. And that for us to access. So the other thing, and I know I've talked to Rune, and he said there was a request to put in, flashing lights for pedestrian crosswalk. I would like to see more than that. I would like to see actual, where they can push a button and get across, because these kids ride their bikes along West Valley, they walk across, they're skateboarding, they're using their little scooters, all sorts of things. And that, so we gotta watch for our kids and that. Then the idea of bringing in all of the public is another big concern. And if there's no access for them, then that means they gotta go out there to 288th. Is that what I'm understanding?
I'll talk about the access, because that trail is 10 feet wide, so fire trucks can actually drive on that north.
Okay, what about people though, when they are walking in, how do they get in there?
From where?
From, if they're walking down West Valley?
On
Going-
the south side, so the trail is dead. Yeah, there's a public right of way from West Valley, the trail dead ends there.
Okay, and so they can walk it, but not drive their side-by-sides, right?
There's a trail along West Valley too. and
But you're allowing side-by-sides on the trails?
That's to be determined.
If
Oh,
the
okay,
city does.
okay.
We don't have any power.
Okay, that's what I wondered, all right. So concerns on that, I would also, that down there is just not a good thing for us living over there in Flatwater. And then all the public access area, what type of lighting is there gonna be? Is it gonna be shining into all the homes that are along Flatwater that face West Valley? And that, so I question that. And my last, was, the things that we're doing for the community. All of it is, it's like redundant. It's the same thing we're putting in our city park that we just spent millions of dollars on. Pickleball courts, basketball, volleyball, pavilion. What we really need is a pool for our city. And that would be a nice way to welcome, the community.
John's gonna work on that next.
Go, John.
Sorry, John.
And that, but this is just my suggestion, it's not anything more than that. The last thing is the traffic study. I was upset when I saw that there's a traffic study, and that to me is just ridiculous, because you can't do a traffic study when you don't know what's coming that way, especially when you're bringing in all the traffic from public wanting to come in. We got West people coming out there under West Valley from Flatwater. That's our only way in and out. So we're gonna be sitting there waiting, especially when all the construction's going on, and that to get on there. And then it's gonna get even worse on 288th, because that is a mess. Trying to get out during busy times with those trucks, because they come flying, and God forbid, you think you're okay, but a lot of times you're not. So those are my concerns, and a lot of concerns of the Flatwater residents. So I just wanted to bring that forward, and I appreciate you guys really addressing a lot of the questions that we have. And that's why I know why you're up there. Thank you.
Greg, could you explain how a traffic study is supposed to work? And who's all involved? And I know it's a state road, so I'm sure there's more requirements.
You know, there is somebody on the
Even
planning commission that might be a resident expert on this topic, but I will do it and then he can correct me. No. Basically, they will take, on like a project like this, they will take the overall lot density or number of lots, and there's standardized projections of traffic flow, and that will create traffic. But as part of the initial part of that, they'll go out and do traffic intersection counts for, say, the subject intersection at Highway 64 and Ida, potentially 288th and Ida itself, maybe down at Valley Street. Basically, the street along Valley Street is kind of a dead end. You go from the water tower to 288th. It's kind of in my mind, it's more of a collector item than what would be a arterial roadway itself. And so you get that background traffic data of what's existing today. And there's factors with the state that says if you counted on a certain day to account for if it's a weekend traffic or those parameters as well. And then they'll take the traffic projection of what the development is and add that onto it for what they call the design year of, say, 2027 or 2026 with what Mr. Beller says for when they're looking to get the initial houses on, and then it's like what recommendations that, so they're looking at intersection warrants for traffic signals, roundabouts, turn lanes, auxiliary lanes for left turn, right turn, turning movements. Those parameters are all, I think, topics that are considered as part of the traffic study. And then also looking at bigger picture is what else is going to be happening in the area of future development that could be added on easily to what those traffic projections are. It's like, well, if you have Valmont next door that has 200 vacant acres, what are they projecting to use, and start to try to add that on. And that's where our future land use map starts to help clarify as well. So what are the other surrounding things going on here? Fortunately, from the south, you know, we're kind of Mig Street and we're kind of somewhat developed then. You know, there's some vacant land down there, but it's largely owned. And then you of course have 275 to the north. That's kind of bisecting kind of what the study area is. And of course you have the river to the west. That's kind of somewhat of a natural boundary for what a projection would be, as 64 goes across over to Bush Air and dead ends as well. So
you get to review this study?
yeah, unfortunately, they make these things about, I don't know, 350 pages to 400 pages long with all of the supporting data. If you include the appendices, so. But yeah, but all part of that, all kidding aside, that document then is part of as a document that gets turned in, like to this, for this specific project, gets turned into the state as part of the application to create a new intersection or to improve an intersection. And then what's the impacts of that intersection to the, in this case, the highway system. So, Mr. Kyle, do you have anything else to add?
That's pretty good. Well, there was one thing, particularly with Highway 64, given the regional significance of it, the Department of Transportation will also provide a growth rate of how is that traffic on the highway growing over time as well. And that's added into the background traffic too. Otherwise, you got everything in there. Good job.
Sorry, Bree.
That was good. No, it's strong in lines.
Everett, did you want to say something?
No, it wasn't germane. It had to
Okay.
do with something else.
Anyone else?
I do got one question. Them 13 or 14 lots there, how deep are those? Do we have an idea at least right now how deep they're gonna be? Does it say
150.
150 foot deep?
You're talking about these ones?
Yeah.
150. At least that's what it shows on here.
And do we know what the setback is from 20? From the road or from the lake?
From the property line.
Is minimum 20?
I looked this up.
And a couple of those, Scott, when discussing with these guys, at least the preliminary thoughts were side load garages on these fourplexes that would have the driveway running farther back than just stopping at 20 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're all shaking their head, yes, good. I paid attention and I took notes on one of our many meetings. So that would provide a much deeper driveway because you're kind of doing a U, if you will, a U building. So you've got all the additional parking space in there. So.
That's another point. We've had like 3 meetings with these folks to iron out with Greg and iron out some of these things, so that there's, these good questions come up now just to fine tune it.
Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry, I forgot. What about parking? No parking?
on both sides,
On Valley.
yes, on West Valley, I'm sorry. Okay,
Again, that's be up to
I mean, that's something to
the
look
police
at.
report and city council, I suppose. We wouldn't do that.
It's not allowed. No,
I won't sign though.
it's not signed, but.
Any other comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion from our members? If not, I'd ask for a recommendation on the vote
Motion to.
to change the zoning.
Oh.
This is on zoning.
It's just on
This is zoning.
Just
You're making the motion, Mark?
Yeah. I'll
To
make a
approve.
motion to approve.
Second? Yes. Brian? Voice vote, Christie?
Kyle,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Greg and Jim are absent.
Motion carried, okay. 9B, Flatwater Estates LLC, Champion Shores, consideration and recommendation to approve the preliminary plat. I will open the public hearing. Any public comments, proponents or opponents? And now we're just talking to the preliminary design. Again, remember, they all just have to come back with all these questions answered for the final plat.
Correct.
Through us and through the city council. Anybody wanna?
I have one item.
Again?
What's the projected?
Who's gonna regulate that area that they're opening to the public?
Public hearing? I would guess Nick would.
It's the owners association. So the owners association will have its own insurance policy. They'll have their own,
That's not what I'm asking.
Make their own rules.
Who's gonna patrol that and make sure
it's
that
in your city, so your police department patrols it.
I own property right next to it? I can imagine you opening that up and parties, all kinds of problems right there in that area.
Yeah, so again, our HOA will manage that. There will be no parties and group events like that. It's pretty easy to manage and know if that's going on. And then also, because we're in the city, your police department have access to obviously control that as well.
I have a comment on that remark. It's not easy to patrol them. I live on the lake and it happens all the time and the police can't chase them down when they're in the boat or on the water. And especially when you're opening it up to the public, you are putting those kids at risk. I mean, kids will be kids. And then, but you still, someone's gotta be patrolling that. And if they can just climb a fence or just go in on a walk path any hour of the night, that's what you're gonna get.
There'll be hours to where you can access that. So whether that's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, where you close access,
So they're gated?
that part is not gated, no.
How are they gonna keep them up during that hours?
Unless you stay on the sentry, because our
Maybe
police
it
are.
needs to be gated.
It's gonna be monitored just like the park.
Yeah, it'll just be.
But just like the
Yeah,
park.
but the park doesn't need some water where people can fall even or whatever.
Only so much we can do, I guess, like.
I would think that trail would have to be wide enough for a squad to be able to.
It'll be 10 feet wide.
And we're lighted.
Portions of it will, but you don't want a lot of light over there.
Right.
Somebody brought that up. So there won't be a lot of light.
There's probably enough light from Belmont.
Any other comments from, if not, I'll close the public hearing. Any other discussion from the members?
Yeah. When you mentioned that, I heard the date 26 or 27, when it's gonna be time to start construction, you foresee?
Like foundations, building of homes. You gotta get all the infrastructure in there. So there's a healthy amount of paving and storm and sanitary that we gotta put in, and dredging. But yeah, best case scenario, fall of 26, most likely 27.
Okay.
How much more dredging do you think you guys have?
Like 300,000 yards?
Just that simple.
You've been. You get your question answered?
Yep.
Any other questions? For anybody here? All right, I move for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
To approve. Preliminary plat. Approve the, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat.
I'll second.
Kyle, second. Voice vote,
Kyle,
Yes.
Larry,
yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Greg and Jim are absent.
Nick or Lori, would you like to say anything?
We're just looking forward to get it going. It's been a long run trying to get this thing developed, so I think our latest plan here is the best one we've come up with. The activity area, I think, will be a really good thing for the
Well, if
city.
it looks like your facility out there on the highway, it's gonna look
Yeah.
really, really nice.
Well, we're gonna set it up right. I mean, you
Really
can see what we built there. We're gonna do the same thing.
If you both got a chance to go into their building, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing in there.
Yeah.
And you can buy a chair or something too, I guess.
Yeah, we look forward to it.
Anything else, room, for the good of the cause? For Greg?
No.
Last week, next? Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
If you got a nay, you have to stay.
Larry, who made the motion and who seconded?
I made a motion.
Okay.
Ryan.
Brian, second.
Oh.
Saturday.
Oh, you know.